There's a saying, Srila Prabhupada even used it. There's a saying that a preacher is least appreciated in his own hometown. And I guess that's just normal. So we shouldn't get too upset if that thing happens to us. Anyhow, I see most the devotees seem to be rather new devotees. So I don't know, how much you're going to be able to put this dissertation to practical use now, but we should remember that today's disciple becomes tomorrow's guru, isn't it? So therefore, it's always good to be, let's say, edified and, cautioned as to the actual purpose of our mission, etc. So I've written a few words here just to try to consolidate my ideas so that I don't carry on and on and on and on for 3 hours. I again earnestly offer my obeisances to the esteemed assembly of devotees and humbly entreat all of you to once more kindly, carefully, and patiently hear a few selected, straightforward, truthful, and perhaps spicy words from the heart of a most lowly and insignificant Indradas. Some may think me to be a bit brazen, or rather audacious, to say the things I do. Whatever it may be, I pray your broad-mindedness will kindly recognize the relevance of this short dissertation, as well as my intention to catalyze a greater depth of thoughtful discussion regarding the mission of His divine grace and the progressive viability of our involvement with His mission. Left to themselves, the fumbling Raganuga dabblers will ever disastrously stumble along as unauthorized intruders into the path of rasa, and their lobha and bhava will never crystallize. However, when, by the Lord's mercy, genuine lobha, that means greed, for attaining one of the braja bhavas, appears in the heart, one gradually becomes enlightened in different ways. Uddhava says in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.29.6, quote, Krishna reveals himself through the āchārya, spiritual master, or through the agency of cetaguru, the supersoul. Thus, some devotees attain knowledge about the moods of Krishna and his Braja associates from the mouth of a Rasik Vaishnav guru, some from the mouth of a learned Raganuga devotee, and some whose hearts have been purified by the practice of devotional service will have this knowledge directly revealed to them from within their hearts. From the stage of basic anartha-nivṛtti, so at least we should come to the anartha-nivṛtti platform, then this starts to have more relevance in our lives. But it has relevance even now because it is meant to prod you, to push you, to do the necessary anartha-nivṛtti, to come to the platform where this begins to make perfect sense. From the stage of basic anartha-nivṛtti, when Guru and Krishna will be satisfied with the intensity of our anxiety, our desperation, our ardent avidity, and our nishta for attaining our natural eternal mood of loving ecstasy, Bhav Siddhi, there will certainly be further and further enlightenment by gradual revelation both from within and from without. Then practical attainment of our authentic eternal prayojana, our requisite premika relationship as an assistant of Sri Guru in his or her eternal services, to Radha and Krishna will be sure and solid by their grace. At that stage only, fullest empowerment to act as an agent of Krishna's compassion, both internally as a Braja Gopa or Gopi serving in his Nitya Leelas, and externally as a preacher moving within this psychophysical dimension, becomes possible, not otherwise. This material world will be repeatedly manifested and unmanifested for the rest of eternity. It is not that this insignificant point on the eternal time continuum is the all-important consideration. For all of eternity, there will be innumerable fallen conditioned souls who will need to be delivered to the supreme perfection by the influence of someone's highly qualified and most capable, fully self-realized, superconsciously empowered preaching efforts. Furthermore, a most profound truth is that Krishna, being an extremely witty connoisseur, very often requests the emancipated jiva who has in the Satchit Ananda spiritual body attained his pleasure pastimes at his abode of Golok to return in the āchārya swarup to this material cosmos as a Nitya Mukta avatar. Such a Mukta jiva may then act as the greatest emissary of the Lord's compassion to the Baddha jivas bound by the network of Mahamaya's allurements. Having become the recipient of the fullest extent of Krishna's mercy, only the said emancipated jiva, as a fully enlightened Gopa or Gopi, has the most splendid, incomparably beatific experience of the brightest absorbing prema contrasted against the black background of previous material existence characterized by abject forgetfulness of the Lord. The Nityasiddha jivas, as well as Krishna's divine Swarup Shakti Tattva counterparts, and even Sri Krishna himself, being always transcendently situated and ever free from the influence of the modes of material nature, can never have such an extremely enhanced contrastive experience of the extent of the Lord's compassion. Only the emancipated jiva, fully evolved to the acme of individually achievable transcendency, can most perfectly empathize with the plight of the conditioned soul. And only such a thoroughly unfettered devotee, having perfectly completed the progressive course of Braja Bhakti Bhajan, can bring about in Krishna an enhanced appreciation of his own golden quality of benevolence, an appreciation otherwise unfeasible in the spiritual world. It is only the emancipated jiva, therefore, who truly realizes what bliss is in store for the conditioned soul upon achieving the highest perfection. And as such, the emancipated jiva is the fittest to instrumentally deliver the fallen souls to their highest end. Having the fully actuated Satchit Ananda Siddha Deha, the emancipated jiva remains ever beyond the degrading influence of the modes of material nature. He or she may therefore remain perpetually within the material world if required for assisting the Lord's preaching mission, apparently descending to the second class or Madhyamadikari devotional status without running the risk of falling down to the material platform. Every disciple wants Guruji to be such a fully empowered Parama Mahabhagwat avatar coming down from the spiritual world to deliver disciple-ji to the lotus feet of Krishna. We will have the rest of eternity to collect the thousands and millions of disciples if that's what Krishna wants. Not that we push the panic button, childlessly play makeshift lifeguard guru, jumping into the ocean of material existence to save, in quotes, the drowning, in quotes, souls, become overwhelmed by the tidal wave of Maya and heroically get ourselves drowned in the process. Are you still with me? It is a little distracting. You're right. It's nice that we, in all our spiritual infantility, intelligently rely on the power of our Guru's fully self-realized purports in the matter of assisting his preaching mission through the solid medium of transcendental book distribution. That is no doubt a tremendous credit. In the end, however, it would surely be preposterous to expect the books to be fully Krishna conscious for us, wouldn't it? Transcendental book distribution certainly serves to puissantly inculcate ideal spiritual standards upon humanity. That is the mercy of the Acharya Parampara, to give us some meaningful engagement along the way. Nevertheless, we should not idiotically ignore the obvious implication that it is we who have to personally learn and gradually realize the full gamut of progressive pure devotional experience. This must necessarily be accomplished by the practical application of This must necessarily be accomplished by the practical application of appropriate, authoritatively approved internal Rupanuga methodologies, notably illustrated in the writings of Raghunath Das Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad. The point is that practically every one of us at some juncture was on the receiving end of the book distribution effort. Can I see a raise of hands of how many devotees received a book, and that is what induced them to come forward to join the Krishna consciousness movement? Did anyone ever receive a book? So the question is, here it is, book distribution effort. We were on the receiving end. Practically every one of us was on the receiving end of the book distribution effort at some point. Book distribution effort means that the books were distributed to someone, and we happen to be the someones to whom the books were distributed. Why were the books distributed to us? The idea should be that the books were distributed to us to induce us to go to the highest end of realizing our eternal relationship with Krishna in one of the Braja Bhavas. Unless and until we actually go to that end, the purpose of the book distribution that was done to enable us to receive the book won't be perfectly fulfilled. Therefore, we have to go to that end to make the book distribution effort a complete success. An intelligent and thoughtful book distributor should sincerely consider, understand, appreciate, and in due course apply this principle in practical life. Otherwise, what is the meaning of the whole affair? How can we deem our transcendental book distribution a complete success unless the someones become fully absorbed in relishing the Braja Bhavas as a result of having gained an attraction and greed for them by deeply imbibing the Shastra's essential message? The someones. Who? The we someones.
Pilgrims, Hare Krishna. Please, quiet.
Work
No talking.
Work now, samadhi later. That's all right. But what work? And how much later? How later does later have to be before later can be considered later enough? Later, after some future, God knows how many births? Restoration of one's constitutional topmost Braja Prema saturated quality of para dukkha dukhi compassion toward others, as our Srila Prabhupada has. Following in the wake of the immaculate moods of the Gopas and Gopis of Vrindavan, an achievement of full-blown self-realization in terms of the jiva's highest potential are in effect one substance. Prema and compassion are essentially tantamount in that prema deliberately expresses itself as the service endeavor to facilitate the happiness and relieve the distress of Krishna and his devotees, not excluding the fallen potential devotees of this prison world of threefold sufferings. Particularly in the higher rasas, in the higher Braja rasas, Shringar, Vatsalya, and some varieties of Sakya, a natural supramundane sense of superiority in relation to Krishna as a lover, son, or friend may be noticed, wherein the devotee is seen to rightfully manifest dayabhav, mercy, as a consequence of karuna, pathos, toward the Lord. Such occurs in response to suitable udipanas, stimuli, due to the intoxicating nature of intensified rati for the Vishaya alambana, object of affection, which naturally covers a Rag Bhakta's knowledge of Radha Krishna's omnipotence. This is not very astonishing, as the highest features of prema exhibited in the stages of sneha, man, rag, anurag, bhava, and mahabhav are unachievable in the present material body, sadak deha. It is no laughing matter that one should progressively attend to the internal culture of the moods of Braja, for without doing so, one could never hope to manifest the suitable eternal spiritual body, siddhadeha, essentially required for prema's maximum expression. Actually, the highest premika compassion evincible by any jiva can only be gained in the company of Krishna's eternal retinue after joining his manifest earthly leelas in this material world. When that degree of prema brims over to compassionately inundate the rotting lives of this prison world's doleful denizens, then only can topmost empowered preaching be done by anyone. As such, it would behoove any aspiring preacher who wants to realize his or her highest preaching potential to go to that end, even if it demands a concentrated, purposeful dedication of considerable time and energy in this lifetime to preparatory antaranga bhajan with that long-term aim in view. Wherever we find a realized exemplar of the full array of unalloyed devotional wisdom, the personage's external institutional rank or social status notwithstanding, there we will behold a perfectly holistic representative of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. Perceptive, truth-seeking people yearning for genuine spiritual substance are not impressed by any level of histrionic, institutional upadhi-reinforced, razzle-dazzle sermonizing. It may be argued that, well, we on various levels are all representing the movement in the making. Movement in the making means to progressively move the bungling bhaktas from the position of unaccomplishment to the position of accomplishment, from imperfection to perfection, from impurity to purity. The idea is that the movement is like a hospital, gradually moving everyone toward the healthy, pure devotional ideal. Not that one should idealistically expect everyone in the hospital to be perfectly healthy and pure. That's all right. We shouldn't unjustly cast aspersions upon the sincere patients, sadhakas, though they, with all their frailties, have yet to be fully disinfected. The point, though, is that the doctors should be healthy and pure. The movement's āchāryas, leaders, coming in the āchārya parampara, should be pure and self-realized. It is not that there shall be no subsequent generations of āchāryas. All the disciples are instructed to come up to the decontaminated, liberated standard of āchārya. The offenseless Shuddhanam Bhajan Sankirtan Anandi, practically manifesting the pure attributes of an āchārya, who clearly ascertains, follows, and from the realized position propagates the scriptural conclusions as per the decisions of the previous āchāryas, is to be considered a truly viable link in the Sampradaya's disciplic succession. There really can be no feasible makeshift or stopgap blind Uncle Vicar. Disciplic succession means from āchārya to āchārya or āchāryas, not from āchārya to umpteen gazillion blockheads who, being too spiritually gutless to grasp the recognized esoteric method of unalloyed devotional realization, prefer to parade about, presumably on the plea of para upakara, preaching any retarded, shabby, so-called philosophy that blunderbusses out from their internally bankrupt, institutionally bamboozled, busybodying brainlessness. Just as the series of crystal clear lenses of a telescope brings a distant image within the purview of our eyes, in the same way, A sampradaya's transcendental heritage is brought into the scope of our understanding through a transparent medium, a chain of pure and spiritually potent representatives of the Acharya Parampara. Dusty, foggy, flawed, warped, or impotent lenses will not do. A chain of lenses is as clear and reliable as its faultiest lens. To act as transparent medium means to allow others to clearly perceive the distending radiance of the Bhagavad Siddhanta by purely exemplifying the perfect application of the principles of Bhagavad Dharma as per Sambandha Abhideya Prayojan Vichar on the basis of scriptural evidence and personal attainment. Āchārya in the Gaudiya line really means one who is fully Krishna conscious, who purely teaches the path of unalloyed devotional conduct, both external and internal, by personally imbibing and practically demonstrating the unalloyed, unconditional loving devotional ideals of the Brajvasis. Whether a Nitya Siddha avatar appears in this world as an Acharya, or a Sadhan Siddha having attained perfection in a previous life is reborn by the will of the Lord to act as Acharya in the service of the Sampradaya, or one or more individuals in the present life gain the spiritual fitness to exemplify the principles of Braja Prema Dharma for the benefit of others, the role of Sampradayic Acharya is not a matter of institutional rubber stamping. There's no question of institutional rubber stamping. The rubber stamping of gurus is in fact quite against the principles of Sampradaya. It indicates neither purity nor high caliber Krishna consciousness. There actually has to be purity. And where there is purity coupled with realized Siddhanta-based Ragmaya, unalloyed devotional expression, rubber stamping or no rubber stamping, there we may hope to see the actual current of the Sampradaya. No amount of institutional legislation has ever in the past ensured that the budding disciples will not get any other than Sadguru, nor does such presently offer any reasonable assurance to that effect, nor can such ever feasibly promise a foolproof approach to Sadguru in the future. Glaring testimony of this statement rests in the much less than unblemished post-founder Acharya institutional track record. What more need be said? One gets Sadguru by the grace of God, having accumulated suitable sukriti by lifetimes of inadvertent contact with agents of bhakti. A fortunate jiva becomes inclined toward the service of the Absolute. When Krishna, who is seated as Paramatma within the heart, directing the wanderings of every living entity since time immemorial, deems one the object of his mercy, then only by his arrangement is it possible for one to get the feet of Sadguru, not otherwise. By the mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru, and by the mercy of a genuinely elevated Vaishnava Guru, one gets Krishna. The institutional rubber stamping of Guru, as well as the recurrently observed herding of unsuspecting fledgling devotional candidates into institutionally endorsed liaison with chic awash, locally lionized, ecclesiastically rubber-stamped guru figureheads simply boasts of a preposterous overestimated shot at managerially manipulating, governing, or meddling with the entirely independent will of the Absolute. In reality, though, God's will is quite beyond the grip of any theocracy's ostensibly ironclad administrative edicts. Those who are God-sanctioned to get the feet of Sadguru will definitely succeed by dint of Providence's inscrutable transcendental system, even without the aid of materially concocted religio-legislative contrivances. And despite all the well-intended precautionary legislation, those not destined to get Sadguru in the present life, though associated with one or another preaching organization, will be frustrated time and again even after repeated futile attempts. Of this, there is ample precedence. The shining example of devotees authentically empowered by Krishna Shakti to undeviatingly represent the teachings of the predecessor āchāryas will itself suffice to satisfy all institutional requirements. Aspiring Sampradaic adherents need only be siddhantically edified and alerted as to the standard Shastric criteria for ascertaining the fitness of Guru. That much institutional governance is legitimate. Deviants and impostors will automatically be shunned and fall into disrepute. No amount of artificially imposed ecclesial governance in the matter of Guru appointment under any clumsy pretext can change for half a hairbreadth the God-sanctioned progress of a jiva's sojourn through eternal time. To advocate otherwise on the plea of administrative safeguard and quality control is to indecorously vaunt one's lack of faith in the inescapable will of the Supreme and the āchāryas' actual instructions concerning the principles of disciplic succession. It is true that the highest realization is to take all risk to go out of one's way to save the world. That is our mission for sure. Still, even so, still higher than that, ultimately, the very highest realization, the profoundest mission, is to save oneself. First, make yourself spiritually fit. Doctor, heal thyself. First, chant and dance in ecstasy like a madman. Then worry about saving the rest of the world. Higher than becoming guru is to become an accomplished, fully self-realized disciple, and that hardly implies that one should pompously pose as a king with no clothes to passionately impress the little neophytes with how much one might have superficially garnered from the lines of letters on the pages of piles of books. Nowhere is it mentioned in any shastra that neophytes and intermediate devotees achieve prema by initiating hundreds and thousands of disciples. It is really best not to accept any disciples at all. I repeat, this is Srila Prabhupada's instruction from a purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is really best not to accept any disciples at all. Better, by far, we humbly endeavor to chant Shuddhanam via the intent prosecution of Yuga Dharma Nam Sankirtan with a view to achieve ultimate Ragmaya perfection at the feet of Sri Guru. Then, we may hope to become truly empowered instruments in the hands of the predecessor āchāryas. We must always remember, it is not that authority constitutes truth. Truth constitutes authority. That is Guru Parampara. Diplomatic affairs tend to dismantle Brahminical culture. They who prefer to bend, water down, compromise, or obscure the truth to suit various inveigling, materially conceived managerial agenda on the plea of propagating the Krishna consciousness movement are not truthful Brahmins. Then what to speak of being Paramahansa Vaishnavas? It would serve us well to remember that our beloved Guru Maharaj, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, after having spent 9 preparatory years in Vrindavan, went out to benefit the people of the Western world as a fully self-realized spiritual master, not as a fake-it-till-you-make-it, relatively unimpressive, struggling, neophytic, superficially polished cyber preacher having little, if any, actual cognition by way of divine revelation as to the details regarding his highest potential Braja Sarup. On this holy occasion of Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja festival, I humbly request everyone who claims to be his follower, please don't be distracted by superfluous pursuits. Our human lives are very, very short. Moreover, the current of world affairs is extremely precarious. The urgency is paramount. If we actually want to become empowered representatives of His divine grace, then let us please boil down the milk. making it thick and sweet by seriously concentrating our endeavors, focusing our attention as much as possible on the essence of what our Srila Prabhupada is ultimately all about. Confirmed. Whatever we understand about Srila Prabhupada, according to our individual maturity, level of purity, capacity, and angle of vision, we should know beyond a shred of doubt that our Srila Prabhupada is a topmost Brajbasi, very, very, very dear to Srimati Radharani, and by his mercy, we can also become similarly dear to her if we deeply understand his mission, sincerely take shelter of the Yuga Dharma, Nam Sankirtan, and try our best to follow in his footsteps without material contrivance or mental concoction. If my words have somehow in any way ruffled anyone's feathers, please forgive them. Please forgive them, my words. They are only doing their duty to represent my inner feelings and realizations as per the perception of reality allotted to me by the Lord of my heart. Purity is the force. I thank you for tolerating my meager existence. Harer Nam Eva Kevalam. Om Tat Sat. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.